There's a specific exhaustion that only certain people carry. Not the exhaustion of too much work, though the work is often genuinely too much. Not the exhaustion of insufficient sleep or insufficient rest, or the ordinary depletion that a demanding life produces in anyone who's living it with genuine engagement. Something more interior than any of those things. The exhaustion of a person who has been, for as long as they can remember, managing something that was never formally assigned to them and never explicitly requested, but that they took on anyway, with a faithfulness and a consistency and a skill that has never been adequately acknowledged because it has never been adequately seen. The management of other people's comfort. The specific, continuous, largely automatic work of reading the emotional temperature of every room before fully entering it, of adjusting what is expressed, how it is expressed, and how much of the genuine self is brought forward based on what the room appears to need, rather than what the genuine self actually wants to offer. Of holding back the opinion that would disrupt the agreement, of suppressing the need that would create inconvenience, of producing the response that maintains the peace rather than a response that would be honest. Most people who do this work do not experience it as work. They experience it as simply how they are, as consideration, as maturity, as the reasonable adult's appropriate sensitivity to the feelings of the people around them. The work is so deeply embedded in the way they move through the world, so thoroughly integrated into the automatic operations of daily life, that it does not feel like effort any more than breathing feels like effort. It simply is, until it is not. Until the body, which has been keeping the actual account of what the management costs, while the conscious mind has been maintaining the fiction that it costs nothing, the body finally produces an exhaustion that the ordinary explanations cannot adequately account for. An exhaustion that does not respond to rest because it is not being generated by insufficient rest. An exhaustion that persists through vacation, and through recovery periods, and through every external improvement in circumstance, because its source is not external. Its source is the continuous, largely invisible, genuinely expensive work of a self that has been managing everyone else's comfort for so long that it can no longer remember clearly what it would feel like to simply be present in a room without performing that management. Gabor Maté understood this exhaustion with clinical precision and personal familiarity. He traced it to a specific developmental origin, to the specific quality of early relational environment in which the child learned, not through explicit instruction, but through the accumulated experience of what produced safety and what produced disruption, that their role was to attend to the emotional needs of the people around them before attending to their own, to read the room, to adjust the self, to be helpful, pleasant, easy, undemanding, to make things comfortable for others as the most reliable available strategy for maintaining the connection that every young nervous system genuinely requires. This learning is not pathological. In the environment in which it was formed, it was intelligent. It was the specific, efficient, genuinely adaptive response of a nervous system doing exactly what nervous systems are designed to do, finding the most reliable, available strategy for securing what is genuinely needed. The child who managed everyone else's comfort maintained connection, maintained warmth, maintained the specific quality of relational safety that made existence sustainable. And the adaptation worked. It continued to work in various forms and various contexts across years and decades of adult life. The person who manages everyone else's comfort is often genuinely beloved, often described as considerate, as thoughtful, as the one who always knows what the room needs. The skill is real. The care that generated the skill is real, and the cost of both the skill and the care has been accruing below the level of conscious awareness for the entire time. If you recognized yourself in what I have just described, if something in the specific description of the management and its exhaustion landed as genuinely accurate rather than approximately relevant, drop 11 in the comments. 11. The number of the one who finally sees clearly what has been running below the surface. When you type 11, you are saying, I see this pattern. I'm willing to understand it honestly. Type 11. And let us go into the genuine territory. The first thing that needs to be understood about the exhaustion of managing everyone else's comfort is why noticing it is itself significant. Because most people who carry this pattern do not notice the exhaustion as exhaustion from this specific source. They noticed exhaustion, sometimes profound, sometimes treatment resistant, sometimes accompanied by the specific physical symptoms that Gabor Maté documented as the body's faithful record of what the psychology has been managing into silence. But they attribute it to everything except the management itself, to the demands of their particular circumstances, to their personality. I'm just someone who needs a lot of rest, to the ordinary requirements of a full life, to anything that locates the source outside the specific interior dynamic that is actually generating it. Noticing genuinely, specifically, without the immediate protective reach for a less accurate explanation that the exhaustion is coming from the management of other people's comfort is the beginning of the only kind of change that actually addresses the source rather than the symptom. And noticing it is not common, because the management is so thoroughly integrated into the operating system of the self that carries it, that questioning it feels initially like questioning something fundamental about who they are. The second thing that needs to be understood is what the management is actually protecting. It is not primarily protecting the other people whose comfort is being managed, though it often appears to be, and though the genuine care for those people is often real. What it is primarily protecting is something more interior and more vulnerable than other people's comfort. It is protecting against the specific consequences learned early, embedded in the nervous system, still running as the primary threat assessment of not managing other people's comfort. Against the specific outcomes that the original environment produced when the management was insufficient or when genuine self-expression disrupted the comfort that was being maintained. The withdrawal of warmth, the disruption of connection, the specific, painful, entirely non-hypothetical consequences of a relational environment in which the genuine self-expression was received as too much, too inconvenient, too demanding. The child who learned that other people's comfort was the condition of connection did not make that learning up. The learning was grounded in genuine experience, and the management that resulted from it was the intelligent, faithful, entirely predictable response to that experience. Understanding this genuinely at the level where the nervous system can register it, rather than simply where the conscious mind can acknowledge it, changes the relationship with the management. It is no longer simply a habit to be broken or a pattern to be overcome through the sustained application of better boundaries. It is an intelligent adaptation that served a genuine purpose and that continues to run because the nervous system has not yet accumulated sufficient experience of genuine self-expression, producing different outcomes than the original environment produced. The third thing that needs to be understood is the specific cost, not the cost to productivity or to the career or to any of the external measures that the surrounding world uses to evaluate whether a person is functioning adequately, the cost to the genuine self, the specific, cumulative, entirely real cost of years of organizing the expression of the self around what the room needs rather than around what is actually true. The opinions never fully expressed, the needs never clearly named, the genuine responses to genuine situations filtered through the management before being allowed outward. The specific quality of creative impulse, of intellectual engagement, of genuine enthusiasm, and genuine objection, and genuine emotional response that gets caught in the management's editing function and either significantly softened or entirely redirected before it can reach genuine expression. Over years, this cost produces something specific, a growing distance from the genuine self, a gradually increasing difficulty in answering honestly and from the inside rather than from the management the question of what you actually think, what you actually want, what you actually feel, in a specific, unrehearsed, unmanaged reality of the present moment. The management has been so consistently applied for so long that the genuine self signals have become genuinely harder to hear beneath the management's continuous operation. This is one of the most significant and most consistently underestimated costs of the pattern. Not the exhaustion, though the exhaustion is real and is serious. The gradual difficulty of knowing, directly and honestly, what is genuinely present in the interior life, because the management has been filtering and adjusting and editing that interior life for so long that the direct, unfiltered signal has become difficult to access. Now I want to give you the 7 specific shifts that genuine healing from this pattern actually requires. Not as a program or a protocol, as honest description of what changes and in what order, when the pattern is genuinely seen and genuinely engaged with. The first shift is the recognition that managing other people's comfort is a choice even when it does not feel like one. The management feels automatic because it is automatic. The nervous system has been running it below the level of conscious decision for so long that it does not present itself as a choice in the ordinary moments of its operation. It simply happens. The adjustment is made before the conscious mind has registered that an adjustment is being made. Recognizing that this is a choice, that there is a self who's making the adjustment, however automatically, is the beginning of genuine agency in the territory. Not the immediate capacity to choose differently, the recognition that the choosing is happening. And that recognition, however modest it initially seems, is more significant than it appears. Because the choice that can be seen, even if it cannot yet be changed, is already less automatic than the choice that was invisible. The second shift is the development of a genuine practice of noticing the genuine response before the management of it. This is the most foundational practical skill available for working with this pattern. In the moment when the adjustment is being made, when the genuine response is being filtered through the management before being allowed outward, developing the capacity to pause, however briefly, and notice what the genuine response actually was before the management edited it. Not necessarily expressing the pre-management response, simply noticing it. The opinion that was softened, what was it before the softening? The need that was suppressed, what did it actually feel like before the suppression? The genuine reaction to the specific situation, what was it in its unfiltered form before the management converted it into something more comfortable for the room? This noticing does not require immediate action. It requires only honest attention. And the accumulated experience of genuinely noticing the pre-management response across the ordinary moments of ordinary daily life begins to rebuild access to the genuine self's actual signals, begins to make the interior life legible in a way that the management's continuous operation has been gradually obscuring. The third shift is the gradual, honest renegotiation of what genuine care for others actually requires. The person who manages everyone else's comfort has almost always conflated two things that deserve to be distinguished: genuine care for other people, which is real, which is valuable, which is not the problem, and the compulsive management of other people's comfort, which is organized around the wounds requirement rather than around what other people actually need. Genuine care for other people does not require the suppression of the genuine self, does not require the management of every potentially discomforting response, does not require the production of comfort as the primary output of every interaction, regardless of what the interaction actually warrants. In fact, Gabor Maté observes something that runs directly against the managing person's primary operating assumption. The people who are most genuinely cared for by the people who manage their comfort are often at some level aware of the management, and they do not experience the managed version of the person as more caring than the genuine version would be. They experience it as slightly less real, slightly less present, the warmth without the full contact, the care without the complete person. The genuine self, expressed honestly, including in the moments when the genuine expression is not comfortable for the room, is not less caring than the managed version. It is more genuinely present. And genuine presence is ultimately what genuine care most requires. The fourth shift is the development of genuine tolerance for the specific discomfort of other people's unmanaged feelings. The person who manages everyone else's comfort has a specific and characteristic relationship with other people's discomfort. It activates something, the anxiety, the urgency, the reflexive reach for whatever will resolve the discomfort as efficiently as possible. This activation is not primarily about the other person. It is about the specific consequence, learned early, still running, of being in the presence of unmanaged discomfort without the capacity to resolve it. The original environment in which managing other people's comfort was the condition of connection, produced a nervous system that experiences other people's discomfort as a specific and urgent threat, rather than as the ordinary, acceptable, entirely appropriate dimension of human experience that it actually is. Developing genuine tolerance for other people's discomfort. The specific, grounded, genuinely difficult capacity to remain present in a room with someone's unresolved negative feeling without immediately reaching for the management that will resolve it is one of the most practically significant and most counterintuitive shifts available, because it directly addresses the nervous system's primary organizing fear. And in addressing it directly, it gradually updates the threat assessment, gradually communicates to the nervous system that unmanaged discomfort in the people around you is survivable, that it does not produce the specific consequences that the original environment produced, that the connection can survive the absence of the management. The fifth shift is honest communication about the management itself. This is the relational shift, the one that changes the dynamic between the managing person and the specific people whose comfort has been managed. Not a dramatic announcement, not the sudden withdrawal of the management as a form of protest or as evidence that something has changed. The specific, honest, genuinely vulnerable communication that names what has been happening. I have been managing your comfort rather than expressing what is actually true for me. I have been adjusting what I say and how I say it and how much of myself I bring to this relationship based on what I thought you needed rather than what I actually felt. I want to try something different. I want to try being more genuinely present, which means sometimes what I say will be less comfortable than what you have been used to hearing from me. This conversation is genuinely difficult. It produces real relational disruption in many cases. Some relationships cannot easily accommodate the person who was managing the comfort becoming a person who is more honestly present. And that disruption is real and deserves to be grieved rather than minimized. But the relationships that survive the conversation, that can hold the more genuinely present version of the person who was previously managed, those relationships become something qualitatively different and qualitatively more sustaining than what preceded the conversation, because they are for the first time genuinely between two real people, rather than between one real person and one managed version of another. The sixth shift is the redirection of some of the care toward the self. The person who manages everyone else's comfort is almost always directing the full capacity of their genuine care outward, not as a conscious choice, as the automatic consequence of an early environment that established other people's needs as the primary legitimate object of care and the self's needs as secondary, inconvenient, or potentially threatening to the connection being maintained. Redirecting some of that care inward, treating the self's genuine needs, genuine discomforts, genuine requirements for rest and expression and honest relational engagement as equally legitimate to those of the people whose comfort has been managed is not selfishness. It is the correction of a specific and costly imbalance that the original environment established and that the adult life has been faithfully maintaining. The seventh shift, the one that Gabor Maté returned to as the most fundamental and the most quietly transformative. The recognition that the genuine self expressed honestly, without the management, in the full and sometimes uncomfortable reality of what it actually is not too much for the relationships and the contexts that are genuinely right for it. The management was built on a specific conclusion that the genuine self required modification in order to be acceptable, that what was genuinely true in the interior life needed to be filtered and adjusted and made more comfortable before it could be offered to the people around it, that the unmanaged self was in some specific and important way more than the available relationships could hold. That conclusion was drawn from genuine evidence in a specific developmental context. And it was the most logical, available inference from that evidence at the time it was drawn. But it was not the final truth. And the relationships and the context and the interior life that becomes available when the management is genuinely reduced, when the genuine self is more consistently offered rather than the managed version, that availability is the specific evidence that the conclusion was not final, that what the genuine self actually is, in its full and honest and sometimes uncomfortable reality, is not too much for the life that is genuinely its own. It is in fact exactly enough for the relationships that can genuinely hold it, for the work that genuinely expresses it, for the interior life that genuinely belongs to it. And the privilege of a lifetime, Matavi, the one Gabor Maté pointed toward with everything he had, the privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are, not the managed version, not the version that has been organizing itself around other people's comfort for so long that it has almost forgotten what its own comfort feels like. Who you truly are, which has been present throughout, underneath the management, waiting with the extraordinary patience of something that has never actually disappeared for the moment when the management is finally, honestly, with genuine compassion for why it was built, gently set down.